Hello, I am Dr. Lisa Belvy. I am a licensed clinical psychologist, and I have a private practice in Northern California. Gosh, I'm so excited to speak with you all today. So I am hypermobile. I have hypermobile EDS, and I consider myself disabled by this condition. My brain is pretty neurotypical, but please don't hold that against me today. I have lots of clients who have autism and ADHD and who are twice exceptional. So before we get started, I just want permission. Do whatever you need to do right now to get comfortable. If that's standing up, if that's laying on the floor, if that's fidgeting, and if that's closing your eyes, whatever it is, please do it. Okay. So I would like to start with a thought exercise. If you would like, you can close your eyes or just let your gaze rest in front of you. You don't have to look at anything in particular. And I'd like you to imagine a world where everyone is asked about their needs before a new job or a new school. What kind of ergonomic equipment do you need? What schedule works best for you? Do you benefit best from virtual meetings or in person? Not because you have a disability or because you have a particular health condition, but just as a matter of course, because everybody has needs. I'd like you to imagine that friends ask each other in this world, what do your bodies and brains feel up to today? Do you feel like going to the cafe with me and having, tea in, a shady spot? Or should I come over and we can lie on the couch together? Where there's always the option in every environment to sit, stand, lean, lay down, or move between these positions. Where eye contact is not expected or read into. Where all gatherings are fragrance-free and considerate of lighting, temperature, and noise levels. Where for every meeting, you have the choice to participate in person, via video, via audio, or in writing. Basically, where people meet each other where they are at. How do you feel in this world? Do you feel lighter? Maybe a little less stressed? Do you feel more well? I know I would. So, in the words of the fictional Dr. Frankenfurter from the cult classic Rocky Horror Picture Show, don't dream it, be it. Don't dream it, be it. Well, how do we do this? Where do we even start? Let's start with what we're up against. This world was not made for us. It was not made for us. Ableism predominates. Environments, policies, practices were designed for a non-hypermobile, able-bodied, neurotypical individual. And while we're talking about how the environment makes us feel unwell at times, let's talk about intersectionality. The vast majority of us were assigned female at birth, meaning women, girls, non-binary and gender non-conforming individuals, trans men, assigned female at birth. Some studies, say as much as 80%. So that's a lot. And we're living in a patriarchal world. And importantly, we're going to healthcare appointments with a patriarchal medical system. So there's that. Also, for those of us who are queer, who identify as LGBTQIA two-spirit, we are living in a heterosexist, transphobic environment. And for those who are Black, Indigenous, people of color, or more aptly said, people of the global majority, we're living under white supremacy and the effects of colonization. So, oof, that's a lot. What do we do about this? Where do we even start? So I want to take it one step at a time, one area at a time. So let's start with work and school, which is probably what I speak with my clients about the most. Returning to an ableist work or school environment day after day can make us feel unwell. unwell. So what do we do about this? Well, on the front end, we can proactively try to select positions or schools that just work for us by their very nature. So if you know you do better in a virtual environment, look for a position that's exclusively remote or a school that's all online. You don't need any accommodations then. It's already set up to work for you. Or for school, for classes, do you benefit from classes that are synchronous, meaning at a particular time and day, or asynchronous, on demand, where you can do it to your own schedule? What about for work? My number one recommendation, if it is possible for you, is to build your own business. That will give you absolutely the most control over what you need. Yeah, I see some claps in the audience. Yes, over what you need. You can build the environment and shape it to your needs. And I know for me, that's worked really well. I've worked in academic medical centers. I've worked at the VA for years. But now that I'm in private practice exclusively, I feel more well. I'm doing better. Now, what if you're already in a school or, a workplace? You can request accommodations, but it might be hard to envision what an inclusive environment looks like if you're not used to one. What does that even mean? What does that look like? I have some ideas on the screen here, but this is just to get the juices flowing. I mean, there's so many things that you might be able to do. I do recommend the Job Accommodation Network, or JAN, which is funded by the US Department of Labor. Go to their website. They have a accommodation and compliance series by condition with suggestions for accommodations. So there's actually one specifically for EDS, believe it or not. There's one for autism, there's one for ADHD. So take a look, and just to get the juices flowing, like what could I ask for? What would help? And I encourage you to ask for what you need to feel well, not the small accommodation you think your boss or your company will grant you, but what you actually need. And if that's just not possible, or your school or employer is unable or unwilling to grant those accommodations, take a deep breath and think about, what do I want for my life? Okay? So you can look for a new job or a new school. But you might realize that going on medical leave or going on long-term disability or disability retirement might be what you need to feel well. And I know this isn't an easy choice, not at all, but the clients that I have who have made this choice, I can tell you, are doing so much better. So much better. And together we're working to heal and rebuild from there. If you're wondering, that sounds nice, but how can I swing that financially? I don't know how to do that. Well, I would offer you that us human beings are social creatures. We are social beings, and it is okay to ask for help. Whether you're asking or accepting help from your family of origin or your chosen family, from friends, from the government, it might look like living with a friend or family member and then getting some government assistance on top of that and making it work. And I've also heard from clients saying, what does that mean if I don't work, if I'm not a productive member of society? What value do I offer the world? And I would say that your contributions may not have monetary value in a capitalist system, but may still be valuable to your community and those around you. And sometimes it's easiest to see this when we look at other communities and other societies. So in some indigenous cultures, the idea of disability, the concept, doesn't even translate because they're looking at the individual's contributions, what they offer their family and their communities, and not what they lack from a deficit model. In fact, in some indigenous cultures, folks who are differently abled are seen as gifted with a different perspective to offer their community. So yes, a different perspective to offer their community. I think we all have that to share. Okay, time for a night out. So I want to do another thought exercise. So I want you to imagine that you are showing up to a restaurant that your friend picked out. And for the sake of this exercise, let's say it's a friend who knows you okay, but doesn't know your sort of health needs and limitations intimately. So you show up to the restaurant and the first thing you see is that it is on the second floor of a 2-story building with no elevator and no lift. Now, if you're wheelchair bound, game over. Like, you're gonna have to scramble and find another restaurant, and you might be hungry and starting to feel a little lightheaded. Or if you're like me and you have, knee pain, back pain, hip pain, you can do those stairs, but you might be flared up for the rest of the day or even the rest of the week. But let's say you go for it. You say, okay, I'm gonna go. I wanna have dinner with my friend. I'm gonna go upstairs. And you sit down and you get the menu and you're like, oh, this is an Italian restaurant and it's pasta and pizza and breaded eggplant parmigiana, and you are gluten intolerant, and you're like, okay, what kind of side can I order? What kind of meal can I scrape together here? When you're really hungry, maybe you're starting to feel a little lightheaded. And by the way, the restaurant is crowded with poor acoustics and sounds are bouncing off the walls, and you're on the verge of a sensory meltdown. How do you feel right now? Not well at all. So what do you do about this? What can you do? I strongly recommend being proactive in your plans, making plans in inclusive environments that work for you. So this might look like having a few go-to restaurants or go-to social spaces where this will work for me. So for example, you make plans with a friend. You say, hey, meet me at Sam's Log Cabin at 11 a.m. tomorrow for brunch. They say, great. Conversation over. What you don't have to share, unless you feel like being vulnerable, is that, oh, I selected that restaurant because it's on a single floor, no stairs. There might be a wait, but there's a seating area where I can sit while I wait. It's completely outdoors, so I don't have to worry as much about COVID risk and flu risk. But it's shaded, like there's a shade overhead, so I don't have to worry about a POTS flare up as much. And I know that there are gluten-free and vegan items on the menu. If you're wondering, this is an actual restaurant in the San Francisco Bay Area that I go to, recommend it. So you didn't share all that with them about why you selected that restaurant, but you feel more comfortable there. And if you're wondering, well, wait a second, Dr. Belvy, I have executive dysfunction. How am I supposed to make all the plans? I would say, fair enough. And I'd encourage you to, enlist a family member or friend to help you do that planning. And then once you know some restaurants and spaces that work for you, then it can just be on sort of autopilot. Here we go here, or we go here. Okay, I want to talk about medical appointments. So it is sort of unbelievable to me that even though we are going to medical appointments to talk about our difficulties with EDS or talk about our challenges in the neurotypical environment, that appointment is structured as if those difficulties don't exist. So if, for example, you have autism and you're going to talk about having difficulty, I don't always make eye contact and I always have to mask and it's challenging, but you're in that appointment and you feel like that provider is expecting eye contact and expecting you to mask. And so it's like not considering the condition, the challenges you're talking about. Or if you have pain with sitting, like I do, and here you are talking to your provider about, yeah, I have pain with sitting. And by the way, you're sitting and you're in an uncomfortable chair in their office, and it's as if that problem doesn't exist at the moment you're speaking with them. So this slide, honestly, is more for the providers in the room. I encourage you to work to co-construct your environment with your clients, with your patients. And so this might look like, you have options to communicate with me. We can do in-person, virtual, audio, video only. We can even communicate in writing. Or permissioning, non-eye contact, like you don't have to make eye contact with me, I don't expect it. Or going to the restroom, like anytime you need to go to the restroom, say restroom, no further questions asked. I'll see you when you're back. Or if for example, they have migraines, you could say, would you like me to dim the lights for you? Or if they're virtual, feel free to dim your lights or turn off your screen. Now, from the patient's perspective, if your providers aren't, offering this, you can ask for it. You can say, hey, I would really benefit if I could lay on that exam table there while we talk. I will be able to focus more on our conversation. It takes, some chutzpah, but you can do it. I mean, you can ask for this and feel more comfortable during the visit. I I also want to highlight the work of Dr. Halverson and colleagues, including Dr. Franco Mano, who's presenting today. The idea of a hero's journey is something they discuss in an article they wrote a few years ago related to the diagnostic odyssey, and thinking of it as a hero's journey. And I love this idea. I think this is great. What a great mindset when you're going to medical appointments. And what I would add to that is you might encounter some patriarchal ogres or some ableist monsters in your quest for better health, but you persevere. You persevere in that quest. How empowering is that? Also think about things you can control in the medical visit, even down to what you are wearing. Would you benefit from compression garments? And I don't just mean for POTS, which it can help with, but also from a nervous system regulation perspective. Having that kind of containment, that kind of like feeling contained can be really helpful as you navigate, the doctor's visit. Or, do you want to wear your pride shirt or your cat pajamas or a power suit, whatever you are going to feel the most comfortable and strong in. Also, even if you are a full-grown adult, I encourage you to consider, should I bring others with me? Would that help? They could maybe help with remembering things or planning. They could be a neurotype translator. If you're neurodivergent and your provider's neurotypical, bringing along a family member or friend, they might be able to bridge that gap. Or even just as a comfort person. Okay, I would be remiss if I didn't talk about advocacy here. So far I've been talking about what you can do sort of for yourself to, when you encounter ableism in the environment. But what about for others? Well, when and if you have enough spoons, you can advocate to make environments more inclusive. And I have a few examples on the screen here. So these are two things I advocated for in the past year. One was pretty low-hanging fruit. The public pool at which I swim has power assist doors, but they're not always operational, they're not always on. So I advocated for them to always be on. Luckily, this was received very well, and now they're on like 99% of the time. Conversely, at my toddler's preschool, they have monthly meetings for the parents. It's a co-op preschool, and they're in person for over 2 hours at night on these hard metal chairs. And so I advocated for, could we do a hybrid model where there's a virtual option? Because I personally can't attend these meetings. And I'll tell you, it's been a struggle. So, although it was well received, there's been sort of hemming and hawing about, I don't know about this, and I don't know if we have the resources to set this up, and I don't know if it's going to happen, actually, is where we're at right now. And I can tell you from this, it is exhausting. It is tiring to advocate for yourself and others who might benefit from this. So that's why we need allies. We need allies. So if you're able-bodied, if you're neurotypical, if you're not hypermobile, you can help us out. We need you. But very importantly, nothing about us without us. So we need to be involved in the conversation when the policies are being discussed related to our needs. That's all the time I have today. Thank you so much for listening, and I can't wait for the Q&A.